You guys have to see this. There is a brand new app that is totally changing the game for how you can invest in a player. We're gonna dig in and talk to one of the founders today on Sports Card Investor. My name is Jeff Wilson. By day, I invest in tech companies, and at night, I invest in sports cards. Join me and my team as we help you profit from the hobby we all love. Hello, sports card investors, and welcome to a special edition episode where you are going to get a first look at a brand new app that is going to change the game for how you can invest in players. A lot of people in the sports card community, myself included, love buying the cards of young players, of prospects, and taking the chance, taking the gamble that those players are going to have really good performances on the field or on the court, and their cards are going to go up in value. Well, a group of entrepreneurs, a group of former sports card guys have taken that concept to the next level by creating an app that actually allows you to buy shares, buy stock in a player's future performance and watch that stock go up or down in value based on how that player performs in actual games. This is wild. It is called the Mojo app, and I'm gonna put a QR code on the screen right now so that you can download the Mojo app for free. You can download it at any point during the show. We're gonna keep that QR code up on the screen. So when Mojo recently came to me and said, hey, we'd love to do an episode, we'd love to sponsor an episode to get the word out about this app, I said, tell me more about it. And as their founding team told me more about it, I was like, oh, this has the potential to be really big. So I want you to hear it directly from one of the founders. I'm bringing Lax Chandra onto the show. He's a former sports card guy, and now he's created the Mojo app. And by the way, if you can't scan that QR code, the link to download the app is also in the show description below. Please welcome Lax to Sports Card Investor. Lax, welcome to Sports Card Investor.
Hey, Jeff. Nice to meet you.
Hey, it's awesome to have you on the show. I'm really excited about this product. So right off the bat, I'd like the audience to hear a little bit more about what Mojo is.
Yeah, so Mojo is a sports stock market where individuals can invest in players based on their careers. So not on a short-term basis, but you're actually investing in that player's career. The wager that you're making is that this player is going to accumulate. We have 6 stats that we use, and there are linear weights to each stat, just like there would be in fantasy. And we pay out at the end of that player's career the value that that player has earned out. But at any given point in time, even though you don't have to wait for the career to actually kind of win your wager, you can get in and out of your bets just like a stock market. And so we don't expect people to actually hold the bet for the career. But we do it. What we've seen is that users are actually getting in and out of their bets relatively quickly.
So this is fascinating. So like I just on my app here, I just called up Tom Brady, right? So Tom Brady's current price as of when we're recording this is around $173. His chart looks like it's been up a little bit, been down a little bit, but for the most part, it seems to be within maybe like, if I look over the last year, let's say, it's only been up or down about $10. Is that because, Tom Brady already has a really established career at this point?
Yeah, so Tom Brady is, obviously been playing for a long time. So he's actually earned out a lot of his value, right? So in other words, what you're really betting on Mojo is what his future value is going to be. But what we do allow you to do is because he has played a lot, you can multiply the returns on your bet. So I think you can multiply Tom Brady up to 15x. So if he goes up 3 or 4%, right, you can make 45 to 60% on that wager. But you're really effectively on all of these players, you're wagering on that player's future value, and that future value is based on what stats he's going to accumulate over those, over that rest of his career.
Interesting, wild. And as we were talking, I was just playing with the app and I called up Patrick Mahomes. He definitely has more volatility. He's got about a little over $30 worth of volatility. He's $120 now, as little as $84. I suspect if I call up a young player like Trevor Lawrence or somebody like that, I imagine his chart's even more kind of all over the map.
Yeah, so I mean, even like if you take Tua this year, right, because he got off to such an incredible start, he went up, 35, 40%, then he got hurt, he went down quite a bit, and now he's starting to creep back up as his return is kind of, not exactly imminent, but probably in the next couple of weeks. Jalen Hurts is up 40% on the year, and you could also multiply that Jalen Hurts return too. So you could have made 400% on Jalen Hurts based on from the beginning of this year to now.
Wow, so this is wild. So this is similar to what a lot of people try to do with sports cards, right? You're going into a season, people are buying cards of different players who they think are going to perform well over the course of the season, and then they might sell those cards if they get hot during the season and if their card values have raised significantly. It seems like you've created almost a marketplace here where you're doing the same thing conceptually, but it's people aren't even buying cards. They're buying really shares of players in this marketplace.
Exactly. That's exactly right. I think sports cards is kind of what everybody has been doing to actually invest in a player's career. And, we can get into that in a little bit, but I think Mojo is probably a cleaner version of that. And I can tell you why as we get.
And we will talk about why. And I know you have a background in sports cards as well, which we will talk about. So I'm sure that's going to, kind of have an interesting tie-in that you have that perspective. This has got to be. I mean, this has kind of a gambling element to it, right? So does this fall under the gambling regulation laws? And is it therefore is this available everywhere right now?
So we are a sportsbook operator,
okay.
And we go state by state to actually get, market access agreements and regulated by the state. We launched in New Jersey 3 weeks ago. I think it's about 3 weeks now. That's our first state. We have market access agreements so that we can get into multiple states, about 9 states in the future, and we'll expand on that. But this is absolutely, we think it is it's right to be regulated by the state and the sports gambling laws, as opposed to just kind of the fantasy version, where I think there's some limitations.
Yeah, it's an interesting concept how you're kind of blending fantasy sports, a little bit of that sports card mentality. Hey, I hope it becomes available in Georgia soon. Unfortunately, our laws here seem to be a little bit less progressive than a lot of the nation, so I might have to be waiting a little while for it. But hopefully some of our folks out there are in New Jersey or other states that you're getting into and can hop on and give this app a shot.
And when you come to New Jersey, you don't have to be a resident. You just have to be located.
There you go. All right. Well, I'm gonna see if I can catch a flight to Newark here in a few hours. We'll see how that works. Lax, tell me about your background in sports cards and kind of what led to this.
Yeah, so I think the origin story of Mojo started with myself, Mark Laurie, who is the founder of Mojo, and also very, very successful entrepreneur. He owns the Minnesota Timberwolves, and Vinny Barara, who is the CEO of Mojo. The three of us back in this is a long time ago now, back in 1999. No, back in 2000, sorry. Back in 2000, launched thepit.com, which was basically what we were trying to do here, which is we wanted to have a stock market for sports players. We were collectors growing up. We actually sold sports cards growing up, and we liked investing in players, and sports cards was the only way to do it. We didn't think at that time the legal landscape would allow us to basically, have what we're doing now, where you could just bet digitally on a player. So what we did is we used sports cards as a proxy. But it's very, very similar in concept to what we're doing now, where we were the market maker. So we were basically both buying and selling the players and the cards that that represented those players, and the prices would move right based on what was happening on the field, supply and demand, and a whole bunch of other factors. We ended up selling that company to the Topps company in 2001, about 2 weeks before 9/11. And the three of us actually were at Topps for a varying amount of times. I was there for 8 years. Vinny and Mark were there for about 5 or 6 years. And we all kind of did different things at Topps, but very much involved in. I was very much involved in product development and strategy and the internet. And then back 12 years later, after I left, we're kind of redoing the pit.
So it sounds like a lot of Topps guys and a lot of cards guys actually were the ones who started this company. You brought over some of the pit and some of the Topps guys with you.
Yeah, we lived through the greatness and the flaws of sports cards as it relates to investments. And not only are Mark, Vinny, and myself involved in Mojo, but also the ex-CEO of Topps, our boss there, he's now a part of Mojo as well, believing in this concept. And he's head of our legal and compliance. And again, I don't think anybody has more visibility about sports cards than Scott Silverstein. But he kind of believes in the cleanliness of Mojo.
Yeah, in a kind of a new way without actually involving the cards. But as you said, it's a very fascinating idea. I do my top 5 Tuesday show every week here on the Sports Card Investor channel, and we're constantly talking about cards going up and down in value. And most of the time, it's the new players, it's the players that are having the breakout performances, the players who maybe went into the season, with expectations at a certain level and they're far exceeding them. And those are the cards that are normally jumping up and jumping up. But within sports cards, in order to really take advantage of that, you've got to obviously be buying the cards. You got to be selling the cards. There's transaction fees involved. There's shipping involved. There's a lot of complexity involved in what is the best card to buy and what's the condition of it. And there's a lot of complexity, right? So it sounds like you're trying to just essentially make that thought process that some sports card, collectors and investors have, and you're trying to streamline and make it more automated by not actually involving the sports card itself. Is that where you would say the advantage is over sports cards?
Yeah, I think you touched on a lot of the advantages. So when we did the pit, one of the things that we learned, so we use graded cards, right? We were buying and selling graded cards. And one of the problems was that the universe of graded cards for a given player was always increasing, right? As more and more cards were getting graded, the supply kept increasing for PSA 9, Ken Griffey Jr., whatever. And that would have a downward pressure on the value of the card. There were many, many Ken Griffey Jr. cards available. So now all of a sudden you had to pick and choose, which Ken Griffey Jr. card that you wanted to buy. And primarily there's just a lot of, kind of macro factors that are relevant to the sports card industry that can make the prices go up or down, divorced from the player performance on the field, right? And so when Mark was the one who kind of came up with, a couple of years ago, he called Vinny up and he said, hey, remember we did the pit and remember all the problems we had with, card prices going down, and that meant, a player would have a great performance and his card value would go down. And it was just a negative experience or a confusing experience or just a very multifaceted analysis that you had to do to determine whether or not you wanted to invest in a player. Well, we can remove all of that with the new gambling laws. And so we think it's streamlined, we think it's cleaner, we think it's more accessible to more people. And we think you can kind of go deeper from a liquidity perspective, betting on a player, as opposed to being kind of constrained by how many of these cards are out there.
Yeah, fascinating. I do see advantage in that because, we've seen over the last couple of years that for a while the sports card market was hot, and even players that weren't performing very well, their card prices were still going up because the market was helping to carry everything up. Unfortunately, it's been a different story the last 18 months where even some players whose card price, or even some players whose performance has been solid, in some cases, they've seen card prices decline just because of overall market pressures. Not true for every player. I mean, you've got, thankfully the players that are doing the best, like a Jalen Hurts this NFL season, guys like that are still seeing their card prices go up significantly. But I agree that, you always have different types of market pressures involved in the sports card world. And it seems like your mission is to try to eliminate that with your model at Mojo.
Yeah, 100%. I think, I think it's you almost have to be a sports card fan, right, to really understand what's going on with that player value of that card. I think what Mojo does is basically, as opposed to, hey, the supply and demand of a card, the supply and demand of an NFT, it's all about the stats that this player earns, right? And at the end of this player's career, we're going to pay out. There's intrinsic value based on the stats that this player has earned. It's a contract between us and the user, and we're going to pay that out no matter what. So the prices can never get way out of whack, right? Based on how many dollars are in our marketplace, right? Whether there's more dollars or less dollars, whether the supply of the player is less or more. There's none of that, right? It's just like a sports book, where a sports book takes, as many bets as they can, and you're gonna just have an outcome based on the statistics that player earns. It's very kind of clean, we think.
So that's interesting. There's a lot of ways it seems like this could go in the future. Is it going to be more than just, football players and basketball players who I'm buying shares of? Do you see this kind of expanding wider?
Yeah, I think we can go as far as your imagination can take you as it relates to sports. And that includes not only players, but teams, and even more than that. I think, just let your imagination run wild, and we're going to be there.
Interesting. All right. Well, I'm super excited to see what the future looks like for Mojo. I'm sure a lot of our listeners are super excited about downloading the Mojo app in the App Store, free right now to download. Even if you aren't in New Jersey, you can download it for free and browse the players. And then when it becomes available in your state, it will be on your phone for you to go ahead and start buying shares of players. The Mojo app in the App Store. Lax, appreciate you joining to tell us about this.
Thanks, Jeff. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Take care. So what do you guys think about the Mojo app? I think it's got a lot of potential. I'm excited to see this thing roll out nationally. Let me know in the comments below what you think. And if you like this video, please subscribe and like, and go download the Mojo app. That QR code is still on your screen, and the link to download it directly, if you need the link, that is in the show description below. Appreciate you guys watching. See you soon with our next one.